we gon' run it. Hit the field, blast off, watch them all fall. This is AFC North Talk. Got me hype, it's about to be a touchdown. Got the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, and the Browns. Are you listening? It's time to get it hype. Tune in when the season poppin'. Yeah, we going live. Hey, knock 'em out. Ay, first down, going hard. Yes, indeed. AFC North Talk. Let's go. Hey, AFC North Talk.
Welcome to another edition of AFC North Talk. Here we are, week 12. Oh boy, things got very, very interesting after that Thursday night. By the way, I did forget there was a snow game. I'm not gonna lie, forgot that. And look, the
snow forgot, Sonny. The snow didn't forgot it was supposed to be a snow game for like half of this game, and then it was like, oh shit, and it showed up with the vengeance in the third quarter.
Yeah, because it was like sprinkling at the beginning, like flurries, and then look, because Ace told me like, "Hey, Sonny, who you're picking?" And then this is my quote, because I'm not here I said Steelers. I don't see how the Browns win. Steelers are better on all levels, unless the Browns D will have to go insane and produce turnovers to win, and Winston stays turnover free. I don't see it giving. I don't see it give me the Steelers. That's what I said. And look, it was a fun game. I forgot how fun snow games are to watch from the outside. Being there, I don't think it's fun, but from the outside, fun game, very entertaining game to watch. Myles Garrett, low key, he took it personal. He said, "TJ Watt, here you go, brother." And Pickens was a little salty after the game. But Q, I'm going to let you be there because you guys took the Steelers. Now the Steelers, the division is back on play. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Browns winning against Pittsburgh, I think Jared had a good read on what the energy might have been coming into this game, right? Steelers were coming off a big win here. The Browns were coming off of a pretty embarrassing loss, honestly, against the Saints, right? So it made sense that there would be some level of a bounce back here. Look, I didn't believe this would happen coming into the game. I was defeated, like as much as I've ever been walking into it. But this week, for whatever reason, I think you got some really charged up performances from some of the specific guys on defense, Myles Garrett included. And I don't know how much it is that he takes the whole TJ Watt thing personal. Like, I think there's something to that. I don't think he appreciated the comment after winning the Defensive Player of the Year, especially after that. You could say he got snubbed a couple of years. Like, we can go back and forth on the argument all day with who got snubbed here, who should have got the award. He always extended the courtesy to TJ. And for it to not to be kind of brought back, I could see how he feels like that's a level of disrespect from one of his peers. And that probably did motivate him to want to show up this week. Also knowing it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, if you're in the Cleveland Browns uniform, you can't get motivated to play the Steelers. You shouldn't be here, right? So that's another aspect to it. It's a Thursday night game. It's a national TV game. This is the stuff that makes me go, oh yeah, man, this is why you don't ever even consider firing Kevin, right? Because this is something the old Browns weren't doing. The old Browns weren't gonna have a dog shit season and then pull one together versus a really good Steelers team. This never happened with the old Browns, and this is part of the evidence that Kevin can point to and say, hey, look, man, I know we're not where we want it to be. We kind of know why we're not where we want it to be. We can point squarely at the guy who wears number 4 in this organization and say, a good amount. Not all, but a good amount of it's on him, right? You're not going to win the Super Bowl if you don't start Deshaun Watson, but you certainly aren't as out of it as you are. So that plays a big role. I think it's a huge thing that, the organization came out pretty strongly, letting you know that Kevin wasn't going to get fired before that game. And then this game happens, kind of reaffirms that. I just want to make sure that this is how this team plays. They don't have to win every game they play from now on, but I want to see them put up this kind of performance week in week out, just so I could go into next offseason with the confidence of knowing, hey, if we draft well, if we get lucky with the bridge quarterback and get somebody who could just hold it down, we could go in and have a competitive season next year instead of doing this all over again. which I think Browns fans' worst fears. I call it the can't go back syndrome, right? Like if you ever got your money and you did not come from money, you know the fear of not having no money no more, right? Like that is a very real fear for everybody. And the Browns fans have that, right? We know what it's like to not win a game an entire season, and we want to stay away from that. And I think this game was a big thing here for that. Look, I'm not one to denigrate TJ Watt. Like I've seen people get off some crazy takes on TJ Watt. I will always say TJ Watt's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Myles Garrett's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That being said, I do want to address not just Steeler fans, because I don't think this is all Steeler fans. I have plenty of conversations with Steeler fans that are reasonable. I'm talking to you, TJ Watt stans. Y'all whack. Y'all are so whack, dog. So whack. Why can't you give Myles no credit, right? Why can't you just let it be? You know, Myles won that Defensive Player of the Year award last year. Did TJ have an argument for it? Yeah. But if TJ would have won it, Myles would have had an argument to win it too. So he just didn't get it that year. I don't sit here and look, I'm Myles Garrett through and through. That's my favorite player on this team. I'm not about to sit here and bitch and moan for years about a Defensive Player of the award that my favorite player didn't get, especially when the dude you're like complaining for has what? Don't he have two?
Yeah, right. He has two.
No, TJ has one.
Oh,
he has one. Okay, he already has one, right? Like it just feels kind of weird, the energy around it, around the TJ Watt stuff. Like it ain't that hard to give Myles Garrett just an ounce of credit. I've heard people be like, that's ridiculous to even consider that Myles could be better than TJ. And it's like, come on, man, he's been double teamed 14% of his career. like that's a ridiculous number. He has a pass rush run rate of 25 right now, which is an incredible number. Like Myles is playing some incredible football. Sometimes you do wish Myles could be more consistent. He started the season on the injury report with an Achilles injury, right? Like that's the level that he was playing through at the beginning of the year. And now it looks like he's getting healthy, and we're seeing Myles go on one of those tears when he had 3 sacks versus the Chargers, 3 sacks versus the Steelers. There's no doubt Myles definitely shows up more for the big games than he does against these random teams that he plays. Like if he's playing like the Commanders at 1:00 and both teams are under 500, probably not going to get an amazing game from Myles. But honestly, I'm just tired of the Myles TJ Watt arguments, because all that ends up happening is I have to act like one of those two players aren't going to be in the Hall of Fame 5 years after they retire. Like that's all that ends up happening. We're talking about two. This is this generation's Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu. Who's better? Does it matter? The dude who wears the jersey for the team you rock for, that's the dude that you're going to like more. And then if you're outside of those fan bases, you're going to pick whoever you like the most based on other things, right? But, they're both really, really good players. I clearly prefer Myles Garrett in this conversation. I think Myles is just, when you look at how teams cover him, when you look at the fact that he's the most double team player almost every year, it just tells you where offensive coordinators feel like the biggest threat is. But it shouldn't be this volatile of a conversation to have. But it's a Browns Steelers conversation. I bet the Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu stuff was just as toxic, or would have been just as toxic if the internet existed in the forms that it exists today back then. Like, could you imagine, Jared, like going on somebody's post and somebody being like, yeah, Ed Reed, man, he don't really show up.
Like during that time, like Twitter wasn't like as prevalent as it is now, obviously, so we didn't have the forums of it.
And the hot take shows weren't really rolling right? Like it was a completely different sports environment.
For sure. And look, I even said it after the game. Like, obviously, I fall into the TJ Watt, side of it, being a Steelers fan. So obviously I'm gonna, be the TJ Watt guy. But, I said it after the game. Like, you can talk shit when you win and you play the OL. Myles Garrett vastly outperformed TJ Watt in this game. So he can talk all the shit he wants. And that's fine. So when it came down to everything that happened in this game, first of all, I told you. I was pounding the table the entire week last week saying, she was probably going to lose this game.
Can I get one thing off real quick?
Yeah.
I'm going to defend Mike Tomlin here.
Okay.
The 3rd and 7, 4th and 2 play call penalty thing. I've seen a lot of people be like hypercritical of.
Sure.
I feel like it's one of those things that like it's easy to be critical because we know what happened.
Yeah.
But the probability of what happened on 3rd and 7 on that play, given what the conditions were, right? Like if Mike Tomlin's thinking, if we push him back, that field goes harder. They already don't trust their kicker. He's been on a shitty run the last few weeks. It's Jameis Winston in a blizzard. We should be able to cover him, right, for a down and force a field goal.
And by the way, the Browns up until that point were like 0 for 9 or 0 for 10 on 3rd downs, and it made it a 3rd and 7. So I wasn't too critical of it at the time. Like I still agree. Yeah, you probably sent him to 4th and 2 just in case, but I agree.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the 4th and 2 was much more manageable for Cleveland than the 3rd and 7 was, just because you could at least run the ball in that situation, right? Yeah. Like the idea of like, hey, Jameis has to make something happen on 3rd and 7 when he ain't made nothing happen on 3rd down all game. You know, like I thought it was a good bet to make. Like if you're Mike Tomlin, it just didn't go his way, and I know a lot of people have been critical of that. Also, another thing I would like to throw in here, it wasn't intentional grounding. There was the 66 was an eligible receiver, right? So he was in the area. It was just illegal touching because I believe Ethan Posick touched the ball there. But you go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, coming into the game, like I was like, this feels like a game that the Steelers are going to lose. They won 5 straight. They were coming off their hardest fought game of the year. It was a short week. They never won a road divisional game on a Thursday. Like all of the elements were just kind of adding up for like, this would probably be one that they drop. I will say this though, for all of these doom and gloom Steelers fans, that after every loss, the sky is fucking falling, and there is no God, there is no tomorrow. It's Armageddon. Calm the fuck down. Like, oh my God. Like, it's crazy when I become the voice of reason for Steelers fans, where I'm like, bro, they're 8-3 and leading the division.
It reminds me of one time on First Take. I think Tom Brady had like 2 bad games in a row, right? But they had won one of them.
Right.
And then like I think somebody was on there like, yeah, man, he just doesn't got it anymore. The age just finally hit him. The Patriots are in for a disaster. And Mike Greenberg was like, they're 10-4.
And that's the point. Like, I think that and especially in like this hot takey world that we live in for the most part, like you're either the greatest thing in the world or you're terrible. Like the Steelers are none of those things. They're not in the echelon of the Chiefs or the Bills or the Lions, but they're also not the Jaguars. Like nobody coming into this season realistically said, I think the Steelers can win the Super Bowl. I sure as hell wasn't. But I would also be lying if I said, damn, they're 8-3. Like I would not have expected that either. So like I'm kind of over the moon about where the season has gone because it's going better than I would have thought. I picked them to go 11-6 coming into the year and get a playoff spot. I still think that's incredibly possible because I think they're going to win the rematch with Cleveland. I think they're going to win the second game against Baltimore. And then it comes down to, all right, you got to beat Cincinnati once, and you got to, if you do that, then you can go 3-3. I don't think they're going to beat Philadelphia, and I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City. Although Kansas City looks more beatable by the day, we'll see how that goes on Christmas. But if they go 3-3 down the stretch, they're 11-6, and they probably win the division. Like, okay. And then depending on who you welcome in, depending on where you finish, they probably finish 3rd or 4th. So if you bring in the Chargers, if you bring in the Ravens, if you bring in the Broncos, I think they can beat all 3 of those teams in a playoff game. So I'm not completely freaking out. And by the way, full disclosure, I think they're going to lose this week to Cincinnati. I think they'll lose the first one. I think they'll win the last game of the season in Pittsburgh. So there's going to be so many other people who are going to be like, 2 straight losses, fire Mike Tomlin. Bro, they're 8-4. They're going to be a playoff team. Hey, after that, we'll see what happens.
There was real smoke to fire John Harbaugh earlier this year.
Yeah, there was.
Right? Like every single coach in the AFC North has been on the hot seat, and then immediately it's been announced they're not on the hot seat. I don't know if that's the case for Zach Taylor, but I would imagine that's the case for Zach Taylor. Oh, it's not been the case? Nobody's come out and said he's safe? Oh, okay. It sounds like Ace about to cook. Sounds like Ace about to cook.
Bro, it's your bye week. What happened to you? Come on. It's okay, Ace. You'll be all right.
Hey, you should be happy, Ace.
No, they found out he about to do something like put a Marius Mims at guard or something.
But in terms of like the shit that happened in the game, It was like a tale of two. Like the Steelers just couldn't put together a complete game. The offense struggled a lot in the first half. The defense played well enough in the first half. They gave up a long touchdown drive that culminated in Nick Chubb's first rushing touchdown. And then in the second half, the defense picks it up to an extent. Nick Herbig gets a strip sack. They have a touchdown pass from Russell Wilson to Calvin Austin that takes the lead earlier in the half. Justin Fields has a long 30-yard run that sets up Jalen Warren touchdown. So they score the Warren touchdown, and then on the ensuing drive, there's the strip sack, and then like 2 plays later is the Austin touchdown. So they go from 18-6 to 19-18 really quickly. It's just the defense came up short in incredibly like opportune moments. The Browns go 4 for 4 on 4th down. Can't happen. I don't care if you go 1 for 10 on 3rd down if they're just going to pick it up on 4th down anyway. Too many chunk plays offensively. You can't pick up a yard. There was multiple 4th and 1s, 4th and 2. You can't pick up a yard. And Arthur's misplay calling in this game, easily his worst game as a Steelers offensive coordinator. Everybody in the building knew you were running on 4th and 1, running some sort of inside zone, and the Browns jumped on it. 1st and 2nd down, everybody watching at home, everybody in the building knew you were going to run on 1st and 2nd down, and the Browns said, bro, you're not going to do it. Have fun on 3rd and long. And for the most part, that worked for Cleveland. So there needs to be a lot more diversity when it comes to the play calling. Like, you can throw on 1st down, Art. It's not a penalty. You can do that. You can throw on 2nd down, Art. It's allowed. Like, do something different. Like, the play calling was just so stale, and it was really annoying. And I enjoyed the more usage of Justin Fields. I think on the first 4th down, had he waited another second, the left side sprung open, and it would have been a long game, but he immediately ran to the right when the blocking was going more to the left. And like I said, a hole came open. He just kind of panicked and abandoned the play. So overall, like the Steelers, more or less, they had their chances to win this game. It's just the defense couldn't get off the field on 4th down. They couldn't take advantage of the late interception from Dante Jackson, where as much as I just said, I enjoyed the usage of Justin Fields. I don't get putting him on the field on 3rd and 4 and having him throw the deep pass to George Pickens. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, considering that since Russ took over, he's been like the best deep ball thrower in football. So if that was the play call, just have Russ throw it. That just makes sense to me. Overall, Russ didn't play bad in this game. He went 21 of 28, 270 and a touchdown. There's one play that sticks out to me where Pat Freiermuth got behind the defense, and I think like the first quarter, and he just threw a check down to Darnell Washington. But if you watch the All-22, Pat had like a 65-yard touchdown if Russ would have waited like a half second. So overall, Russ didn't play bad. I don't think that this is like a doom and gloom game or anything. Like, I went into this game expecting them to lose. So they're 8-3. I think they're going to be 8-4 by the end of this week. And guess what? They're still going to be in prime position as long as they take care of business. If they beat Baltimore a second time, if they win the rematch against Cleveland, still win the division. So, suck that they lost, but I said all week, I think they're going to lose. And that's what happened. So I can't be too disappointed when what I expected to happen happened. Still think that they're in prime position to win the division. And we'll see what happens then if that does happen.
By the way, Mike Tomlin, hilarious quote before halftime. What are you going to do about Myles? He has 3 sacks. Why?
What am I doing?
I don't know.
There was on one of those sacks, like I think he started on the left side and they ran a stunt, and Zach Frazier just got his first. Oh, that's Myles Garrett moment. So yeah.
Everybody I've known that's ever played football against Myles Garrett, like in real life, you ever ask them about like, hey, what's that like? They just like stop breathing for a second and go, shit, man, I don't know. Like,
it's like when you see like those like high school videos of like a 5'2" white kid trying to guard Zion Williamson. Like, what the hell's he gonna do? Like, have fun.
Or that one kid that Cooper DeJohn put on the poster, man, on his basketball highlights.
Ace.
Yeah, man. Najee Harris, no longer Dasani Water. He's living that pure life. He's living that pure life right now. He's glorified tap water, at least in this game. This is a game that I didn't think that the Browns would win, but the one way I said that they would win is, the weather and them being able to play defense and run the ball. They were able to do that. The Steelers in this one, they weren't really able to establish the run. It seemed like even with Warren, it kind of seemed like he couldn't get started. And the weirdest part about this game is the worse the conditions got, the better the Steelers offense got. It was like at first when it was an opportune time for them to be able to do some things, they weren't able to do it. And Jameis and company were able to take advantage of that. You talk about Myles Garrett having the 3 sacks. Browns defense showed up and showed out. But the Steelers were just kind of sluggish with the conditions and everything going on there. So, it ended up costing them late in the game. They still had an opportunity. It seemed like they're late in the game to win it. And I was like, okay, is Jameis about to give them this one? What's going on? But they weren't able to kind of close it out. But
Jameis tried to. He threw a pick. They just couldn't pick up like an extra first down and maybe take it to the 2-minute warning. And
exactly. Honestly, I was watching that game, and then when Jameis threw the pick, I was like, all right, it's a good game. Like, time to hit the bed. Like, I went to sleep thinking that the Browns were going to lose that game. I woke up and saw what happened at the end, and I'm like, man. But I think for the Browns, this was something that showed that they don't have any quit in them. And I think, like, as soon as I saw, like, the beginning of the game, they interviewed Jameis Winston.
Can we just acknowledge that it's so fucking annoying. I'm tired of everybody pretending that it's fun. It's fucking irritating.
It's great.
It's so hilarious, goddamn annoying.
Jameis Winston needs his own
sitcom. Snowballs, Jared. You ain't like that?
Wait, no, Jared, you gotta admit, when you saw how giddy Jameis got when they were like winds of 15 miles an hour, and he was like, "Oh shit, we're about to win this game."
I was so. It's just so annoying.
Like he got so hyped. But
I'll say this, and it might be an unpopular opinion. There is nothing more annoying than a motherfucker who's like, "Look how quirky I am." Like, fucking Jameis, we get it, bro. We get it.
Jared hates Jameis Winston.
Bro,
I don't hate Jameis. I don't know Jameis the guy, but I hate public Jameis. This mask that he puts on very purposefully before games.
The thing is, I don't think it's an act. I just think he's just like that.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely. No, genuinely, I've heard from enough firsthand accounts of people being like, y'all don't even know what he be saying. Right. Well, then, did you see that one interview where Gerald McCoy and LaShawn McCoy were talking about that thing where he was talking about the eating W's? Like, everybody talking about eating W's. Y'all don't even know what he said in the locker room. We was in the locker room.
That was even the worst of what he said.
Yeah, he was like, hey, we was in the locker room. He was like, hey, this gonna be one of them games where you just gotta pull it out and let them know who's bigger. It's like,
then maybe I do hate Jameis. I don't know. I feel like it would just be a thing where like him and I just wouldn't. We're just different personalities.
Nah, man.
Did you see the post game? Did you see the post game interview where he was like, "I was"?
You think he stuck around for Jameis after a Steelers loss? He wasn't trying to watch none of this. Jared didn't even want to see the pregame interview where he talking about war horses.
I can only imagine what 80-year-old Al Michaels up in the booth is thinking. Like in his head, he's like, "All right, Jesus Christ, Kayla, can you just send it back? Yeah, I regret ever doing it."
Al Michaels is happy when anybody talks on the broadcast is not him. I'm pretty sure he loved Jameis. He like, yeah, this Michael.
That's a decent point. I think that Al Michaels could be like a very like undercovered big Jameis guy. That's a good point.
Yeah, he just like, yeah, because when he talk, I don't got to talk.
Speaking of like Al Michaels, like. Still very enjoyable to listen to me. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but there was a punt in this game. The Browns had a punt, and it was a shank. And you just hear Al, what was that? And I was like, yes.
No, the snow was so bad in this game. Al Michaels called a white man David Njoku.
He called Blake Whiteheart David Njoku. That is true.
Yeah, the snow was crazy. I'm sitting there watching the game, and like my wife isn't in the sports, but we were watching it. We was like, that is like a snowstorm, dog. Like this,
bro. It's only snowed like that like 3 times in my when I was growing up in Cleveland. It only has snowed like that like maybe 3 times in my life. Like that was abnormal. Whatever was going on.
Right. It was crazy, man. Credit to the Browns for getting up for that game. You could tell that they rallied. I know, Jared. They rallied around Jameis, bro. They rallied around Jameis, but
I did see a lot of people who, Browns fans are like, bro, if I ever see Deshaun Watson suit up for this team again, like, and dude, I totally get it. Like, if you see a guy like that who, like, regardless of what I think about it, like, he's obviously playing a lot better than what Deshaun was playing, and they are playing much better around him. So hopefully, for Browns fans' sake, They don't have to deal with that again next year. But according to reports, we'll see.
I will say this one. Yeah, the Browns are looking for options, but also the one thing with Jameis, I think we all I've been catching flack with Browns fans because right now Browns fans, I knew who Jameis was when we brought him in. I was high on him or perceived as a Jameis guy because I was no, he can do what Joe Flacco did. That's well within the purview of what Jameis is. But see, the thing about Jameis is Jameis throws a lot of interceptions, not because he makes bad decisions like you think. It's because he's trying to make decisions quarterbacks like him shouldn't be making, right? He is trying to throw into an elite quarterback window. He is not accurate consistently like an elite quarterback. So sometimes he does drop that shit in there, and sometimes he doesn't, and it looks crazy when you watch it on TV. I need people to understand this. The Jameis Winston thing got to be a short-term deal. Right, you about to rock this out 5 years with Jameis? Oh no, y'all don't know. But
do it.
Jameis Winston, it is not even Jameis gonna play bad. I'm just saying Jameis is a lot. In 5 years of this, we all gonna feel like Jared, right? A couple games, maybe a season of it, you doing good, but put yourself through year 3 of all of this and then let him go 6-10. Right?
I was going to say, go through an entire year of it and get to 4-9 and watch one of those interviews. Listen, you quirky motherfucker, if you don't just complete a pass.
Game interviews except Jameis Winston. That was the first time I've actually watched Browns post games or anybody. I've never watched the Ravens one. I've never watched the Steelers one. Hell, sometimes I don't even watch the Zach Taylor ones if I'm pissed off at him. But I was damn sure. I was damn sure looking for that Jameis post game.
I think another good example of this is in Buffalo. Mac Hollins is a character and a half because he doesn't wear shoes and he's an interesting guy. Yep. And there was a stretch of games where he was playing bad, and there was a meme going around Bill's Twitter, being haha, I don't wear shoes. Yeah, bro, that's great. Catch the goddamn ball.
It's you know what it is. It's when Gardner Minshew couldn't stop talking about.
Yeah. All of these are good examples. Yes.
Yeah. And again, guys who are good for a year or two, you can't have them around for no 5 years, right? You got to draft somebody.
And by the way, I used to be super into the Gardner Minshew stuff. Now I'm just bro, we get it. Shut up.
I was tired of it. After he left Jacksonville, I'm I've had enough. Go get your Barstool podcast and get on,
man. I would subscribe to anything that had a show with Jameis Winston and Marshawn.
Let me tell you, Dave Portnoy is looking at Gardner Minshew and Jameis Winston and rubbing his hands.
Oh my god! What would a podcast with Jameis and Gardner be called? We'll workshop it. We'll workshop it.
That's what that would be called.
God damn.
We have a couple of super chats here. The 188 says, I don't run and hide. Give credit to the Browns. They got it done and Myles ball out. Now, let's see if you can do it again at Heinz in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The 188 says, Cincinnati wide receivers are a salty group, but we'll be ready.
Salty. Oh.
Hey, man, nobody has been more salty than the Steelers wide receivers over time. I'm sorry. We just got to point that out. Remember Chase Claypool on TikTok? Yeah.
No, it was Juju on TikTok. Chase Claypool was just insane.
No, Chase Claypool was on TikTok Live talking about the Browns will get clapped by the Chiefs after he lost in the wild card to the Browns.
Yeah.
Okay, I do recall that then. All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
good call.
There's been look. I made this point. I'm sometimes, man, I think the Steelers are a good organization. I think they have a solid culture, but there is clearly a culture of salt in that locker room because there'd be some salty takes.
There's definitely a portal to just insane-minded receivers that it's just it's just a nice little portal into Pittsburgh, and a lot of them end up there. To quote.
They draft wide receivers with the same mindsets as defensive ends, and it kind of works for them.
To quote mutual friend JP Acosta regarding George Pickens, he said that there's nothing going through that boy's head other than young boy lyrics and CTE. And I was like, that kind of checks out.
The 188 also says the best defensive players is more than sacks/win rate.
I mean, it's a combination of those two things being pretty high.
And the 188 finishes with saying Jameis and Myles are both very goofy.
Why is Myles goofy?
I think it's because he talked a lot like before and after the game.
I mean, Myles brought up, they asked him a question about the whole TJ Watt.
Yeah, to be fair, the first one, like, he was asked about it by the media.
Yeah. The second one, I mean, he had 3 sacks on national team.
Hey, like I said, like, I don't gotta like it.
Best.
Yeah. Yeah, like, if you win and you play that well, you get to talk shit. I get it. No worries.
Now, saying that loss, what that loss does to Pittsburgh is twofold, right? Like, in the case of the Ravens, it opens the door that potentially they can win the division. When I was one that said I think the division is unreasonable. Think about now the next couple of games. Desperate Bengals team in Cincinnati after a bye. Then you get the Browns. That could be a revenge game for the Steelers, right? Then you get the Eagles are playing out of their minds right now. Ravens get the Eagles this week. And then Ravens after the Eagles, you get the Ravens, Cincinnati. I'm sorry, Ravens, Chiefs, and then Cincinnati. And that schedule is spicy. It's definitely spicy.
Like I said, I think that they'll split it. I think they'll lose the first game to Cincinnati, win the rematch against the Browns.
Sweep Baltimore, what you're saying.
I think they'll beat Baltimore again. I think they'll lose to Philly, Kansas City, and then split with the Bengals.
Okay.
Game. That's in 2 weeks.
Wait, which one?
Which one?
Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
No. It's the weekend before Christmas.
Okay.
Because it's a Saturday game, by the way. So it's on TV, and then they go to Wednesday night, both teams.
Hey, by the way, Jared, just prepare yourself. You're gonna get some spectacular bullshit on that Christmas Day game, man. Pat Mahomes on Christmas, yeah.
I mean, I'll say this: Chiefs played on Christmas last year and they lost to Aiden O'Connell. So we'll see.
Yeah, but they always lose to the Raiders randomly.
That's Black Friday this year.
Yeah,
this is Black Friday.
I will say this though too for Steelers fans who are looking for a historical context from this. The last time that Pat Mahomes was in Pittsburgh, he threw 6 touchdowns and the Chiefs put up 40. And Ben also had a great game that day. He threw for 400.
Coming out party, like wasn't that the one where like
that was kind of like, oh shit, this guy's good. Yeah,
like because it was like he had a hot couple weeks, but it wasn't like he went short.
It was the Steelers home opener that year. It was week 2. It was the week after they tied the Browns and they started off the year 0-1-1.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you right now. I just know how Chiefs games work. Christmas Day, you gonna be up by like 20 or something like that, and then they gonna find a way to sneak back. It's just look, no team other than, ironically enough, Pittsburgh has won on more bullshit than Kansas City, right? And Kansas City are the kings of bullshit. And on Christmas, it's guaranteed some bullshit.
I fully expect that game to be a one-score game, though, just because, like, the Chiefs could – I said this on TV yesterday. The Chiefs could play Slippery Rock University, and it would be a one-score game. Like, that's just their MO this year.
One-score
games. That's what they do. So we'll see when the time comes. But I think for right now, the Steelers, they lost. But if they split the rest of their games, they're 11-6, have a good chance to still win the division. So I feel okay.
Okay, so then last night there was a game. Ravens-Chargers. Obviously,
hey, did you know that Jim and John Harbaugh are brothers?
Oh my god, that got annoying after a while. Like,
shout out to the worldwide leader for being the kings of beating things to fucking death. Like, God Almighty.
And apparently, the last time they did play each other was the Super Bowl. Remember?
Yeah,
what?
We talked about that. Yeah,
it was the Super Bowl. That was the last.
Just the Super Bowl.
Man,
they only played twice.
Ace, are you going to tell me that the Harbaugh family has a history of winning championships too?
Did y'all know that Jim won one at Michigan last year?
What? What? Yeah, you know what? I know Jack Harbaugh won an FCS championship now. Thank you, ESPN.
There was one thing that they said that I was surprised. I did not know that John was older. I always thought that Jim was older.
He looks older.
I did too. I thought Jim was older.
Glasses.
Right?
I tweeted that Jim reminds me of Arwen from The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
Look, Jim Harbaugh is transforming to his dad. Like, he looks just like his dad. He's transforming.
They definitely look
most identical pair of like people who weren't born on the same year. Like they are identical, dog. Them genes are strong. They both are. If he didn't wear them damn glasses, they would look the same, except for like John Harbaugh clearly is like a little bit more relaxed on the surface than Jim. They're both not relaxed people, because if you ever watch John Harbaugh yell at the referee, he's not a relaxed person, but like he's more reserved about it. He'll snap on you. Jim Harbaugh is the type of dude that if he yell at you, you don't even really hear that he yelling at you. Like, you ever have a coach yell at you and then somebody else asks you if you're okay, and you're like, I didn't even recognize that he was yelling. That's just how coach talk. Like, that's kind of how Jim is. Like,
we used to call him in Baltimore when he was in San Francisco, Whiny Harbaugh. He was the Whiny Harbaugh, because this is, it's all he did in the sideline. It's just anything.
He's the youngest.
He's the youngest.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Jim's the younger one.
Jim's the younger one? Oh, yeah. It makes 100% sense. John had to hide it to get away with it, but Jim was like, well, I'll get away with this, so I'm just about to do it, dog.
Jim's the house. So this is a game that the Baltimore Ravens start slow. I was pissed off. I'm not going to lie. That first quarter, Malik Harrison's getting abused in that first quarter. He took all the wrong angles. Every single angle that was wrong. Yes.
On the first drive. On the first drive.
No. Listen, Ace. In that first drive, Malik Harrison was getting abused. If the run was going right, he was going left. If the throw was on the left, he was going right. He had no idea where to be. I mean, I tweeted about him, like, they're just targeting him. He had no idea. I don't know what they said to this guy in the second quarter on, because then he transformed. He played great. But in that first quarter, oh my God. Well, actually, no. You know what they did? If you start watching this game, so in the first quarter, they were treating him like they treat Robo, right? Like, you're going to drop back to cover. You're going to try to read the play and fill up the gap. After 2 drives of that shit, they said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to blitz. And if Herbert keeps the ball, you're going to go after him. And if the running back keeps the ball, you're going to go after running back. And that's it. We're not going to complicate it for you. That's all you're going to do. You're going to just go at it. And I cannot remember a guy. I mean, Patrick Queen did this a lot. But Malik Harrison, I feel like again, after that second drive, and he played good. I feel like if you're going to play him more, that's what you need to do. That first drive, I was concerned. They moved the ball fairly easy. They could score a touchdown. Ravens couldn't do anything in the first 2 drives. Then they score a field goal. Then the Ravens said, you know what? The guys are not that good against the run. Let's start running Henry. And that opened the game. That third drive was Henry, Lamar Jackson for a touchdown. This defense has changed a little bit, though. I said that the first drive concerned me. But this defense has gone from a zone coverage scheme defense to a man defense. And I feel like this is what they need to do. Are you going to get yardage? Yes, but you're not getting blown plays, which is what the Baltimore Ravens were getting, right? Think about the Cincinnati game and other games. We were getting blown plays, like easy, boom, big yard gains. This game, the corners were sticking with the receivers. Receivers sometimes made play, sometimes they didn't, but the corners were there for the most part. They need to keep that energy. They need to keep them in man defense. Tre'Davious White, I've been surprised because I thought he was not going to be a factor for the Ravens after they traded for him. He's been playing really good for us. I like his energy. I like how he's playing. And so once they woke up, the Ravens score basically all the drives after that, minus the last one where they were more conservative, trying to burn some clock. Rashard Bateman with that big touchdown, 40-yarder coming back to the ball like that. Mark Andrews, contested catch. Love that. I don't know what the ref was saying, but he said no touchdown. Like, the ball never touched.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
A weird one, right?
Yeah, because I was like, I never saw the ball dropping, and he definitely clearly got it in. So
both feet were in. He landed out of bounds on his butt after. Like, it was
it wasn't even on the side where it would have shielded.
Right.
Yeah. So the ball, and like I said, the ball never touched the ground. So it's either gonna be a pick or he has it. Somebody has it. Anyway, but great catch from Mark Andrews. The offense picked it up. Henry, this is the first game that Henry didn't score a touchdown, but Justice Hill broke that one. big long touchdown. The Chargers basically after the first half, where the game was 14-13, they didn't have an answer for this team. I know the game looks closer because they scored a late touchdown with like 30 some seconds to go, but Baltimore, especially in the second half, looked to be the better team. Chargers are not a bad team, but Baltimore looked to be a better team. They put 30. The defense in that last drive, they also committed a lot of. I mean, I thought they were soft, but still, they were called defensive pass interference. The guy that I watching him play that I'm surprised because I didn't really see, and I know he has played good against some of y'all too. I didn't see him as good coming out of coming out of the college was Lam McConkey. I like that guy. Like he's definitely their best receiver. It confirmed watching again Johnston how bad he is. Johnston was a guy that I thought I wanted to love him so bad coming out of college, right? Big time, big body receiver. This is the receiver I want. And then I did the film study. I'm like, nah, what the heck? This guy plays tiny. I remember seeing Sage Flowers film. Like, if Johnston played like Sage Flowers with Johnston's stature and body, this guy would be an all-pro. But nah, Johnston's not it. He had 3 drops. Brutal. 2 of them were like easy, like why? Like he did everything. Like he got open.
One
He's
of
there.
Drag, right?
The what?
On a third down that he could have gotten
He
big
could have gotten crazy with. I was like, he wasn't even looking at the grass. Like that's the thing. Like it wasn't one of those like, oh yeah, I'm about to eat. He wasn't even aware of what was going on until he got the iPad. I'm like, oh buddy. He's gonna frustrate you.
Yeah.
And some people will still find a way to blame that on Justin Herbert. Some people will. Some people will find a way.
And then the
other softer ball.
Herbert's definitely running the ball more than previous years. One thing that we did that it's not that I love. I saw a couple of times the edge rushers Oweh and even Benoit rushing through the sides and almost like quitting on going all the way on Herbert to avoid him getting out of the pocket. So they're playing a gang. They were treating Herbert like they treated Daniels. They wanted to collapse the pocket. They didn't want Herbert to get out of the pocket. He got a couple times out, but that was their main thing. They sacked him 4 times. Baltimore was definitely better in the trenches. I like their D linemen. The guy that I can't pronounce his name, that Q likes.
Darian Henley.
Nah, Henley had a decent game now, but the other one.
Man?
No. Tui Pelotu.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, yeah.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Play more defense this year than the whole USC defense his entire career.
I like their front, but it was hard, right? Because you have Henry that they stopped him a couple times back in the backfield, but for the most part, Henry had whatever he wanted to do. And then Lamar really didn't run as much. I think he took like twice maybe, and then a couple of times he was just scrambling, trying to make something, but not really attempting to run. Baltimore had a complete game. Other than the first 2 drives, they had a complete game. So, hey, that's the energy they need to keep because now they're the hottest team. Well, no, the hottest team will be the Lions. The second hottest team right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing them now. So definitely on a short week, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they play. But for now, enjoy that win.
Is that game in M&T or is that in Philadelphia?
It's in M&T. I mean, but this is like...
I mean, I was going to say it's not far.
Yeah.
I'm sure Philadelphia, the tickets are insane. For this game, woo!
They need to sport these Johns for that game. That would be a nice little uniform matchup. Yeah. Am I too white for that? Did I make an error?
Too white for sure. Like it was out. You slowed it down. You thought about it. I was like, yeah.
Well, you know what? We'll make a note of it. We'll come back to it next time stronger and better. Mistakes, we're gonna go back. Coach always said showing up's half the battle, and we'll show up next week and try it again.
But yeah, there's definitely this next upcoming week, and if the Ravens win that upcoming weekend, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Then they're in prime position. But anyway, Jared, what was your thought as you're watching this game? Because you're probably thinking if the Chargers can beat them, we still have 2 games up.
Yeah, like that was my whole thing. I was like, all right, if the Chargers win, then it's a wash. But I mean, the first drive of this game, the Chargers didn't. They rolled down the field.
Yeah.
Herbert runs it in. I don't know what that celebration was, by the way. He's like holding the ball. Like,
yeah, I don't know what
that was. That was something. But regardless, Dobbins was running the ball well until he got hurt. They got Gus Edwards involved early. Lad McConkey had a few big catches, and it was a back and forth type game. And then the defense couldn't stop the Ravens' run game. Derrick Henry ended up with, I think, 140 yards in this game.
5.8 average.
So yeah, once the Ravens were just like, all right, we got Henry, we're just gonna, it's gonna be stop Henry if you can. And there was one play, I think it was 3rd and 1, where they ran it to the outside, and Diane Henley got to Derrick Henry, and then Henry just shoved him away, and then a DB tried getting to Derrick Henry, shoved him away, and that was just kind of that game in a nutshell. Once they started really feeding Henry, and not worrying too much about trying to beat them through the air. So it was a situation where the Ravens got down early. They didn't abandon the run though, because they didn't really have to. And it goes back to what I said coming into the week, where it's just like, yeah, the Chargers, were 7-3 coming into this game, but who have they beaten? Like, they haven't had a signature win this year. Their biggest one was probably against the Bengals. And so, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to put the blame on this on Justin Herbert. There's a lot of stuff the Chargers didn't do right that got in their way. Quentin Johnson had 3 drops. Y'all ever seen the movie Grumpy Old Men?
No.
Well, if not, it's about these 2 like old friends who just are always pissed at each other, and they're fishing. And there's, one of the dudes says something about catching something, and then the other guy says, you couldn't catch crabs from a $10 hooker. That's how I felt watching Quentin Johnson play. I was like, bro, like, it's hitting you right. And like, come on now. So 5 targets, 3 of them dropped for Quentin Johnson. Not great.
That was a great line.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
Would it have been better if he dropped it, because he dropped it and it went straight off his hands? I'm like, man, you would have been better dropping it on the tuck.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there was another play in this game early on where Herbert goes to Quentin Johnson on a one-on-one downfield in the end zone, and I mean, it's a pass that Johnson could have caught. It wasn't technically a drop, but it's a pass they probably could have caught. But when you watch the All-22 battle, he's got, I want to say it was Joshua Palmer on a crosser. He's wide open. It could have gone for big yards. So there's like little things like that, in hindsight, it probably would have been smarter just to hit the underneath guy and let him get some yards after the catch rather than, go to the one-on-one downfield when you got positive yards staring you in the face. But yeah, defensively for the Chargers, they just couldn't stop the ground game, and the Ravens knew that. And offensively for the Chargers, it was just too many self-inflicted wounds that it just became too much to overcome. So I think the Chargers are still a good team. They're still going to be a playoff team. But again, I think they're in that tier with the Steelers, where it's just like, yeah, they're not great, but they're certainly not bad. A team that you don't necessarily want to play because you know that they can beat you for sure. But at the same time, when it comes down to weapons, like, Chargers got to get Justin Herbert some actual receivers. And look, they could have had Malik Neighbors, and they decided to draft Joe Alt. Joe Alt's a terrific player, but in today's NFL, get the weapons first, in my opinion, and go back and get the offensive lineman later. We saw the Bengals do that, and it's worked out pretty okay for them. So I think that
worked out for the Lions too, right? I'm in the other opposite. I prefer to build the line and then get the weapons.
If you've got in the Lions situation, you've also got, Amon-Ra St. Brown's there.
Both.
The Lions figured out a way to do both.
Because they hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that just changed everything, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And kind of because Kenny Galladay, well, not Kenny Galladay.
That was Kenny Galladay beforehand, yeah.
Yeah, Kenny Galladay was like the best receiver they had, and then they hit on St. Brown, and then all of a sudden stuff starts to change, and then they could spend a first round on Jahmyr Gibbs, and then they could also, they got Penei Sewell.
Williams, yeah.
I think the approach to draft, sometimes, and we'll talk about this plenty in the spring, fans get so gapped into, we got this issue, right? And you just try to solve one issue in the draft, but you can take care of multiple problems in a draft, and you can patch some things in free agency to other drafts, right? And that's how you build success in the NFL, at least how most teams do it, is they focusing on one. But if you go too hard on one or the other, you're going to end up with a team that has a great offensive line, amazing offensive line, and you're throwing that thing to Ladd McConkey, and that is your best option.
You could almost say, obviously, Amon-Ra became one of the best guys, but like Ladd McConkey is about where Amon-Ra kind of was like back then. So you could kind of say that they did do the Lions thing. They took Joe out, and they got Ladd McConkey, but the only thing is they didn't have anybody else. And like Q was saying, that team still had Kenny Golladay. So it wasn't like they didn't have any receivers at the time. They were able to.
Well, the thing with the Chargers is that they actively courted off all of their receivers.
That's another thing. Like they traded away Keenan Allen when they didn't really have to.
Yeah.
And Mike Williams wasn't brought back either. So it's a bet that they made.
I appreciate Joe Buck resisting the urge to compare Ladd McConkey to Wes Welker.
Oh, yeah, just all the white receivers. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's just so sure-handed. I'm like, don't do it. These are 20-yard passes downfield. Don't you say it. Okay.
It reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman if you really think about it.
Because Chris Collins would be like, yeah, man, this is Julian Edelman all the way.
No. And by the way, when it comes to announcers, I usually like I like Collinsworth. I'll be perfectly. I think he's good and he makes me laugh. But yeah, Collinsworth have been like, I gotta tell you, he reminds me a lot of Cooper Kupp. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah. Chris Collinsworth, shameless with it, right? You start comparing somebody to himself.
Oh man, that would be good if if Trenton Irwin has a big game on a Bengals game that Collinsworth's calling. If you're just like, it reminds me of a certain other receiver that was Caucasian back in the day.
And Tom Brady on the call, and he's like, yeah, Tom, doesn't that feel familiar for you? And Tom's like, what are you talking about?
Good.
Tom.
Oh, that's funny.
Ace, what do you thought about this game, man?
Yeah, man, I thought it was. I obviously thought that the Chargers could catch the Ravens slipping in this game, and it seemed like that was going to be the case early on, but I think the Ravens just kind of figured it out, and I think once the light came on for them to run the ball with Derrick Henry and that the Chargers wouldn't be able to do it, wouldn't be able to stop them, and Derrick Henry just took over the game, I think it became pretty clear, especially once they got as confident to go for it on fourth down in their own territory, that the Chargers just didn't have a solution for this team. And I kind of saw some of the cracks of that against the Bengals. And I'm like, yeah, they might be, the number one defensive team in scoring, but to Jared's point, who have they played? And now you see them take on a Joe Burrow, you see them take on a Lamar Jackson, and see them take on a Derrick Henry, and they don't really have the answers. Now, I will say, I think from an offensive standpoint, the run game died without J.K. Dobbins, right? And I know they had this same duo in Baltimore, and I always said, I believed in J.K. Dobbins. The guy that I didn't believe in, Gus Edwards. And Gus Edwards in this game was atrocious. And I don't know, whoever that other running back they had spelling Gus Edwards wasn't good either. It was like the complete run game for the Chargers just completely disappeared after that. You guys talked about the receivers. It was pretty clear that the wide receivers for the Chargers outside of Ladd McConkey were non-existent. Quentin Johnston had a pretty decent game, or made some pretty decent catches against us, but he kind of returned to, like what Sonny said, to the rookie version of himself, which was a guy that you couldn't depend on at all in this game. Will Dissly, I talked about, he's more reliable than Quentin Johnston at this point.
Cam ended the podcast.
No, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Ace. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think the Ravens, for them to be able to come back, pull out this game, slow things down on that offensive side, because I said that I wasn't a believer in the defensive side of the game coming into this one. I think the Ravens are starting to prove. I don't know if it's like Sonny is saying, the change from running mostly zone to running man is working out for them. It seems that way. We'll see. I still think that obviously the Ravens are a team that's held to higher standards than allowing 23 points. However, that's better than what they've shown this season, especially with them missing Roquan, not having him in this game. I thought Harrison. Now maybe it's that kind of makes sense what you're saying, Sonny, because I actually ended up watching this game like after the Chargers ended up scoring because I had another show to do. And so when I watched it, Malik Harrison was going crazy. He was like back to back every play. He was making plays in the run game. He was snuffing stuff out. I thought that he did a good job. But outside of that, I think it's a good win for the Ravens. Like this was one of the games I think through this tough stretch at the end that could have gone kind of either way. And I think that the Ravens took care of business, especially them going out to the West Coast, taking care of this one. It's just like, okay, this is the Ravens. This is what we're expecting. But like Jared said, they win these games, but really when it matters, it's going to be the playoffs. But I think this was a good win for them to stack and bounce back from. So, yeah, good win for the Ravens.
I'm going to need one Saquon Barkley to rush for a billion yards.
Like, why did he have to go off for so many? It needed to be
I'm
this
gonna,
week.
I'm going to need to see.
The law of averages. He spent most of his yards last week against.
Yes, I'm disrespecting Gus the Bus, bro. Gus the Bus was a product of Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry, he was a product of Lamar Jackson.
Hey, I cashed out on Gus Edwards anytime touchdown though in garbage time, so I'll take it.
That was definitely garbage. This is like 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what?
Real quick because I got to head out soon here. Just my thoughts on this game for the Ravens. Lamar and Justin Herbert just so good at quarterback, man. Like Justin Herbert, that one play where he just like dodged a free run like off instinct. It's incredible, right? Like they're both just capable of doing so much incredible stuff. Yeah, I think Jared to read is right. I don't think the Chargers are ready to have those kind of expectations this year. They'll be a playoff team. They'll win a game maybe, or maybe they don't. But until they get some more firepower offensively, they're just going to be what they're going to be because that holds them back entirely too much. And like they need to get more size too in that secondary or at linebacker or something. Like they need to have an option to be able to answer Derrick Henry because Baltimore was just able to just throw weight at them in this game to be able to move them as good as that defensive line is, right? And they got JP's the one that says it when you want to run those little linebackers. It's all good until you run into Derrick Henry. So Baltimore, I think, is a better team here. I'm interested to see because I have more faith in Baltimore in the playoffs this year than I did last year, but they're just not like a better team than they were last year because defensively they're not what they were. And I'm interested to see what they're going to finish the season like. But, I'm looking forward to the rest of these AFC North games between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And, I wish Baltimore would play Kansas City later in the year instead of at the beginning of the year because I think now would be a good time to see what they can do against them.
I'll take it. It was a loss, and I was quite happy about it. So I'll take it. Now all I need is Landon Dickerson to hit the field with the strength of his big Republican ass and run him right at Roquan for an hour. Is Roquan playing next week?
I don't know. He tested it before the game. He ran a 40-yard dash.
Was he like a game time decision against the Chargers? Or is it like doubtful and
No, he was questionable. And he was training. People were saying he was not gonna play. And he tested it and he ended up not playing. I think if they need Rowe against the Eagles now, the problem is if it is one-legged Rowe, I don't know if you need that.
Yeah, I need to see. Look, Landon Dickerson, by the way, for the Eagles is proof that every great offensive line is going to have at least one big Alabama Republican on it. So you gotta get those guys when you can. I'm looking forward to that next week, though. Obviously, we all have rooting interest here, being fans of teams within the division. But that'll be a fun one to watch. Hopefully, it lives up to its hype.
Okay, well that concludes our show. Next, we're coming tomorrow, previewing good matchups all around in the AFC North, including that big matchup between Steelers and Bengals. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. Take it easy.